Hi, my name is Jim Gibson. Thank you for joining me today. Really appreciate it. Today I want to answer a question I'm going to give you. Who owns the public school system? And just to give you a little bit of background, I was on the Vista Unified School District for 20 years. And as a conservative, I'm a conservative, pro-life, pro-family conservative. And for most of the time, the people to left of me, and I always said to the left because that's what they were, so I sit in a board meeting and they were always to the left of me, or most of the time they were to the left of me. And they also had ideas that were to the left of me, and very much so. And I remember one time we were just sitting there getting ready for a board meeting, and I asked them the question, why do they call us trustees? And of course, each of them answered a little different in their variations. And they said, well, we're called trustees because we're here to, we've been entrusted by the teachers, and we've been entrusted by the union. So we're here to support the teachers and to help help the organization and things like that. And they turned it around. They said, well, why do you think you're a trustee? And I said, I'm a trustee because I'm actually have been entrusted with taxpayers' money. I report to the taxpayers, and I am here to make sure that the taxpayers get their money's worth in public education. And my focus is on the children. Now, don't get me wrong, we have to have teachers, and we have to have administrators, and we have to have yard people take care of the yards and the plumbers and the carpenters and everything else. Had over 1,000 teachers and probably close to 3,000 support staff in the school system, take care of 28,000 students. And it was a budget of well over $200 million. So it was a lot of money, and it was all taxpayers' money. Of course, they disagreed. They said, no, that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to take care of the teachers and the organizations that the public support the public school system. And I said, no, I made sure you understand this. You are here to support the taxpayers and to make sure that their money is spent wisely for the support of the children. And we hire staff to support the children. We hire the teachers to support the children. We build these buildings for the children, for the taxpayers. We use taxpayers' money to build these buildings. I remember a couple years back, oh gosh, more than a couple years, the President Obama made a comment when he said, do you know that infrastructure out there, those bridges and those roads and those railroads and all, you didn't build those things, we did. And I thought, no, my tax money built those things. And so don't sit there and think that you should be charging us to use your facilities type of thing, but I strongly disagreed with that. So, but the trustees had basically the same idea, that it was their money, and they had a right to it, and it was their job to support basically the union. And I'll tell you why I say the union. The other trustees, and they came and go. Some would win elections, some would lose, some wouldn't run, things like that. But it was generally, I was always outnumbered. And those on the other side of the board, those who were progressives and to the left, most of them, if not all of them, couldn't run an election if their life depended on it. They couldn't run the election. And nor were they going to put any of their personal money into an election or a lot of their personal time. They were handpicked by the teachers union. So the teachers union, labor union, would pick someone that they knew in the community that would 100% support them no matter what. And they would make sure that person got elected. They would pay for their campaign materials. They would pay for their yard signs that go in the yard, the teachers love this person, you need to hire them, it's for the children type of stuff. They would always say that. And a side note, anytime someone says it's for the children, you should get really suspicious, because in public education, in my opinion, it's not for the children. So anyway, they would do things like that. They would make sure that that person got elected. And if they had an issue or they needed more help, the California Teachers Association would, of course, get involved and would send lawyers and would send campaign managers and give money to make sure the right person got elected, the right person that would vote for their salary increases, that would help them get more employees, even if we didn't need them. They would make sure we expanded certain things, because each of those person would pay over $1,000 in dues, and they were required at that time to join the union. So all these things would take place that way, and they always had a mindset on the left side of the table there. They always had a mindset that they're there for the teachers. Now, most of the times they weren't there for even the teachers. It was amazing that there's a lot of good teachers in the public school system. There's some phenomenal teachers in the public school system. And then there's a lot of people who have the title teacher that shouldn't be in the public school system. They shouldn't be a teacher, period. This is not their calling in life. They need to go do something else, but not teach these kids, because they can't do it. They're not that great. But the other ones, there were some fantastic. And most teachers were, they did their job and they worked hard and they did what we were supposed to do. But the bottom line was, all the union cared about was the dues money. And if a good teacher got in the way of the union's philosophy or the union's mindset, interfered with them having total control of the school district, then that teacher somehow would have to go somewhere else in the world, not teach at our school district. And I saw that time and time and again. I couldn't do much about it because I have 1 vote out of 5. So sometimes I could get other people to vote with me. But the times I would get other people to vote with me is when you, the taxpayer, showed up. When you showed up in numbers, you convinced them. What is that old saying about politicians? When they feel the heat, they see the light. And that's true with these trustees. When they felt the heat, they saw the light. And often I would look out into when I have a meeting, I was in the middle of a meeting, there would be people out there, and sometimes it would be as small as 20, 30 people. But one time we had about 50, 60 people out there, and I asked them, I said, I'm just curious, how many people here in the audience gets a check from our school system? And in fact, I did it the other way. How many people here do not receive a check from our school system? And it was everybody in that room at that point on that meeting had received a check on a regular basis from our school system. So the system is pointed towards not supporting the parents. It's pointed towards supporting the teachers union and the organizations that receive money from the public school system. But who owns the public school system? My friend, if you're a taxpayer and you're in that community and you pay taxes, you own that system. And even though I'm hearing lately about these government agencies, the Justice Department and everything else is calling these people terrorists because they scream at board meetings. Well, that happens, and I'm a big boy. People screamed at me many times about things, and I had a right to respond if I wanted. But at the same time, I wasn't going to go home thinking that life is horrible because someone screamed at me. But the Justice Department feels that if you're a parent and you show up at a school system and you complain loudly, then you're some sort of terrorist. And they forget that, no, you're the owner. You have the right to tell trustees your opinion. They need to hear from you. And if it's loud, it's loud. The world doesn't come to an end because someone's yelling. Personally, I don't yell, so I'm not going to get at the microphone and start yelling at people. That's just not me as a person. But I understand sometimes people are frustrated, and that's how they vent their frustration. I never felt threatened, when people come forward. I also notice that if you're given 2 or 3 minutes a chance to speak to the school board, and you have to do that because sometimes you have 100 people that want to speak, and if you're giving them unlimited time. They take unlimited time, and you got to get to the agenda, and you got to hear from everyone. So sometimes you limit it. So I noticed that my friends who were running the meeting there, I call friends loosely, my associates, my fellow trustees who were running the meeting sometimes, when it came to something they disagreed with, they would immediately interrupt that person, and then pretty much just tell them to move on. But if they were something that they liked, they would give them more time. So I kept track of it on my watch, and I wrote it down. And I went with them after 1 or 2 board meetings, and this was early on in my career, and I said, you notice everyone you agree with, you give them more time, and everyone you disagree, you interrupt, and you push them away, and you cut their time. And I say, you can't do that. That's called content editing. You can't do that. That is illegal. If you're going to give 3 minutes to everyone gets 3 minutes. Not 4 to the ones you like, not 5 or 6. Sometimes it was even more than that. To the people you like, you got to give it to every single person. They have a right to speak to you at these meetings. They have a right to express their opinions, even if you disagree with their opinions. And you know something? If you're an intelligent person, you would listen to people that disagree with you because maybe they have a point. So I told them if they continue this way, that I would secure a lawyer to get involved in this, and it would be a public lawyer, not one paid by the public, but a lawyer who would make sure that we treat everyone fairly. And of course, after that, we got a timer up there. Everyone could see the timer, and it had lights, green, yellow, red. I got that from the hospital. Local hospital had those lights outside of some rooms. I don't know what the rooms were, but they'd have green, yellow, and red lights. And so I knew it was possible to do the same thing, and we got a timer, and the timer would keep it green 30 seconds before someone was done. It would turn yellow, and then once it turned red, they were done speaking. And you have to do that to run an organized meeting, and everyone has to be treated fairly. So the question is, who owns the school district? You do, taxpayer. As a trustee, I work for you. And they work for you whether they like it or not. In their mind, they work for the teachers union. Because if you don't please the teachers union, when you come up for re-election, you do not get elected. There's no money in your campaign, and good luck, because you're going to have to figure out how to run if you even decide to run against the union candidate that they have found to run against you. So you got to remember that they do not own the system. You own the system. You own the school district. You own the buses. Now, it doesn't mean as an individual can stand in front of a bus and stop it and tell it what direction to go in. No, you've delegated that responsibility to trustees, and you shouldn't do that, nor should you go into a classroom and interfere with it. But you have a right to go to the school board. You have an absolute right. That's your responsibility as a taxpayer, as a parent. Even if you don't pay taxes, if you're in the school district, you have a right to go there and speak your mind. And they're required by law to give you that time. They're not gifting you this time. This is out of their kindness. That's a law. You have the right to go before a school system and voice your opinion. And you can do it loudly, or you can do it quiet. You can do it with signs. You can hold up signs. You can have all your friends cheer you. That's impressive, by the way, when you get a handful of people there, or more than a handful of people. But all this happens because you have a right to do that. It's your school district. It's not the unions. It doesn't belong to the employees. It belongs to you. And you're the parent. If you're the parent and you're showing up, you have a right to make a comment about the curriculum, and you have a right to make all sorts of comments. Now, how to be effective, okay? If you got one person up there and they're screaming and yelling and everything else, not very effective, to be honest with you. So if you want to change what's going on in your district, then there's certain things that you probably need to do. And the first things you need to do is organize. So you need to get a group of people of like-mindedness and get organized. You don't need to fill out a petition, because petitions, in my opinion, were useless, because people would sign their name and put their email address, and then they would hand it to the board, and the board knew everyone's email address, and then they would start emailing them the propaganda. So you don't need petitions. I don't think they're effective. That's my opinion. But it is effective when people think that you're going to be involved in the campaign, the next campaign, and you're going to give money to that candidate. But you make sure you vet that candidate that you're going to support. Or maybe it's one person that's in your group. Let me tell you, if you get 20 or 30 people and you know what you're doing when it comes to campaigning, that's pretty impressive. I always say that if I had 100% committed people, I could win any election in the state, probably Congress. But I rarely had that many people who were committed in the election. So, committed means you're not only going to spend time, but you're also going to give money to that person. So make sure that who you pick is a wise choice, not just someone who smiles, say, it's for the children, we're all here for the children. That's a bunch of nonsense. So you got to know what you're doing, you got to organize, and you do not need to yell. The old Teddy Roosevelt, speak softly, carry a big stick. And the big stick for you would be getting a bunch of neighbors who are willing to put in time and money to get a good person elected onto that school board, because that's what it takes. It takes time, and it does take money. Now, I'm not campaigning for anything right now. Maybe in the future I will. I don't know. But I know this, that there's a lot of people that talk a big talk, but when it comes time for them to run for a spot, they're nowhere to be found. Or when it comes time to support someone who's a good candidate running for that position, they say, well, I will hope you win. You have a great day. I got to go. See you later, pal. So if you really want to change things in your school district, organize. And make sure that you're willing to put in the time. Even the threat will affect those trustees that were to the left of me. I remember when we had some issues and I would organize a community and I'd say, let's get organized, let's get out there. And I would get 200 or 300 people out at a school board meeting, and they would start chanting, that they wanted something done. And as soon as a trustee would speak to an issue opposed to what they were saying, they would start recall. They'd bring signs, say recall this trustee. That had a pretty serious effect. And there's some lawyers around that free of charge will support you on certain issues, especially if the school district is not obeying the law. And a lot of school districts do not obey the law. A lot of people don't know enough about the law. I used to get the ed code every year, and before it was online, it would be about that thick, the ed code. And what I found out was I would take the ed code and I would read the portions that apply to 12K. K-12, the portions that apply to that. And I really knew the law. It wasn't that much. It was probably, maybe 100 pages worth of legalese. And legalese, if it's written wisely, it's still clear even though it's legalese, if it's written with talent. And so I'd be able to quote the law, and I would be able to get lawyers that agreed with me to support me. And they would come out and speak to the board, and they would say, you're in violation of this law or that law. And at that point, they would change their vote. That happened more than once. It happened a lot. I remember one time I said, they were deciding the school board was going to vote against me, and I said, you know something, it says in the ed code you can't do this. And they all looked a little bit dumbfounded at me. And I said, well, you have read the ed code, haven't you? And at least they were honest. Even the superintendent had never read the ed code. Even the trustees have never read the ed code. They kind of wing it. So if you're talking to a school board and you can quote the ed code, you have a lot of authority. But the bottom line is, be wise, understand your opponents, realize that this school system is here for you, not for the teachers, not for the teachers union, not for the administrators, not for the associated companies that get lots of money through the school system. and we'll talk about that in another video. But it's here for you, the taxpayer. You are not a terrorist. That is so offensive when I heard the Attorney General declare that parents were terrorists. No, you have the right to demand action. You have the right to demand success. You also have the right to stand up for your children. Now, again, when you do these things, always do it within the law and always do it reasonably, okay? Again, don't march into a classroom, scream and yell at the teacher, because I'll get you arrested, okay? Don't threaten anyone with bodily harm, even though I've been threatened many times with bodily harm. Don't you do that. There's ways to do it that are very effective, and I've mentioned them, about organizing, about raising money, everything else, and being wise who you support and who you don't support. There's a lot more I could talk on this, but I'll talk forever, and it's already been over 20 minutes, and I don't want to make this any longer. Thank you for watching the video today. I very much appreciate it. And I'll talk some more about public school system, and if you're a parent or a taxpayer, things that affect you and what you can do about it to make it a better system and to make it better for your children and your community. Thank you for watching. Again, my name is Jim Gibson, and I'll catch you in the next video.